The cantina on Kepler 7 station was darker than most places in the galaxy. Smoke drifted between the tables where different alien species sat drinking and talking in low voices. The air smelled of burning metal and strange chemicals that made most visitors feel sick. But Kethvar didn't care about the smell anymore. He had been sitting in the same corner booth for 3 hours, staring at his empty bottle. His forearms shook as he reached for another drink. The bartender, a fat creature with too many eyes, slid the bottle across the metal table without saying anything. Everyone on the station knew about Kethvar. They knew he had fought in the war against the humans. They knew he had survived when most of his kind had not. What they didn't know was why he spent every night in this dark corner, drinking until his compound eyes couldn't focus anymore. Kethvar's exoskeleton was covered in fresh scars that still hurt when he moved. The chitinous plates that protected his body had been cracked and repaired so many times that they looked like a broken puzzle. His left compound eye twitched without stopping, a nervous habit he had picked up during the war. The other patrons of the cantina whispered about him sometimes, but never loud enough for him to hear. They were afraid of him, which was funny, because Kethvar was afraid of everything now. The cantina door opened with a loud hiss and 3 young aliens walked in. They were Centaurians, tall and proud with their horse-like bodies and humanoid torsos. Their leader was covered in bright tattoos that showed off his military service. His name was Thexan, and he had never seen real combat. The 3 of them looked around the cantina until they spotted Kethvar in his corner. "Look at that," Thexan said loudly to his friends. "That's the famous Zephyrian war hero, the one who fought the humans and lived to tell about it." His friends laughed and walked over to Kethvar's table. The old soldier didn't look up from his drink. He had heard this kind of talk before. Young warriors always wanted to hear war stories. They thought battle was glorious and exciting. They had no idea what it was really like. "Hey, Bugface," Thexan said, using the rude name that some aliens called Zephyrians. "We heard you fought against the humans. Tell us what it was like to beat those soft little creatures." Kethvar finally looked up. His compound eyes focused on the 3 Centaurians with difficulty. "Go away," he said in his clicking voice. "Find someone else to bother." But Thexan didn't leave. Instead, he sat down at Kethvar's table without being invited. His 2 friends stood behind him, trying to look tough. "Come on, old soldier. We want to hear about your great victories. How many humans did you kill? How easy was it to crush their primitive defenses?" "You don't understand," Kethvar said quietly. "You don't know what you're asking." Thexan laughed again. "What's to understand? Humans are weak. They have soft skin and only 2 arms. They can't see in multiple spectrums like we can. They don't have natural armor or weapons. How hard could it be to fight them?" The other patrons in the cantina started to listen. They could sense that something important was about to happen. The bartender stopped cleaning glasses and paid attention. Even the smoke seemed to hang in the air more thickly. Kethvar's mandibles clicked together in what his species considered dark laughter. The sound made everyone in the cantina feel cold. "You think you know about predators," he said slowly. "You've seen our hunter-killers. You've watched them tear apart prey in the hunting preserves. You think that makes you understand what real danger looks like." He took a long drink from his bottle before continuing. "But humans are not like anything else in the galaxy. They are something different, something worse." "Worse?" Thexan scoffed. "How can a species with no natural weapons be worse than our hunter-killers?" Kethvar's compound eyes fixed on the young Centaurian. For the first time in months, he looked fully alert. The twitching in his eyes stopped. "Sit down and listen," he said. "All of you. I'll tell you about humans, but don't blame me when you can't sleep tonight." The cantina became completely quiet. Even the background hum of the station's engine seemed to fade away. Kethvar reached for another bottle with one of his 4 arms, while the others drummed nervously on the table. "The war started 3 years ago," he began. "The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 47 different worlds. We had the best technology, the strongest military, the most advanced weapons. When our scouts found the humans, we thought it would be easy. They had just started to spread beyond their homeworld. Most of their colonies were small mining operations or farming settlements. He paused to drink again. The alcohol was making his voice steadier, more focused. The High Command decided to take their outer colonies first, test their defenses, learn their weaknesses. Then we would move on to the bigger prizes. That sounds smart, one of Thexon's friends said. It was smart, Kethvar agreed. Against any normal species, it would have worked perfectly. But humans are not normal. He leaned forward and his voice dropped to almost a whisper. The first attack was on a mining colony called New Denver. 2,000 human civilians and maybe 50 security guards. We sent one battle group, 500 of our best warriors with full combat armor and heavy weapons. It should have been over in an hour. The Centaurians leaned in closer. Other aliens throughout the cantina had stopped their own conversations to listen. The colony had no military defenses. Kethvar continued. No orbital cannons, no shield generators, no fighter squadrons, just a few mining laser turrets that were designed to cut rock, not fight wars. Our commanders were already planning the victory celebration. He stopped talking and stared at his bottle for a long moment. When he looked up again, his compound eyes were unfocused, as if he was seeing something far away. There was a human there named Jake Morrison. He was a maintenance worker. His job was to fix broken equipment and keep the mining machines running. He was 43 years old, had 2 children back on Earth, and had never been in combat before in his life. What happened to him? Thexon asked, though he seemed less confident now. Kethavar's mandibles clicked again. Jake Morrison held off an entire Zephyrian assault squad for 6 hours using nothing but mining equipment and his knowledge of the facility layout. He turned industrial cutters into weapons. He used the mine's conveyor system to move around without being detected. He rigged explosive charges from mining supplies and set traps that killed warriors who had been fighting for decades. The cantina was so quiet that everyone could hear the station's life support systems humming in the walls. When we finally cornered him in the main processing center, he had already sent detailed intelligence about our weapons, tactics, and equipment to the other human colonies, information that a simple maintenance worker should never have been able to gather or understand. Kethvar finished his drink and immediately opened another bottle. The squad leader who finally killed Jake Morrison was a veteran of 20 campaigns. He had fought the spider folk of Andromeda and the crystal beings of the Vega system. Afterward, he told me that Jake Morrison was the most dangerous opponent he had ever faced. But you won, Thexon said weakly. You took the colony. Yes, Kethvar said. We won. We took New Denver after losing 63 warriors to 1 human maintenance worker. And that's when we realized we had made a terrible mistake. He looked around the cantina at all the faces watching him. That's when we learned what humans really are, and that was just the beginning. Kethvar opened his third bottle and stared at the liquid inside. The cantina remained silent except for the distant hum of the station's engines. Even the bartender had stopped moving, waiting to hear what came next. The 3 Centaurians sat, frozen at the table, no longer looking proud or confident. After New Denver, the High Command thought Jake Morrison was just lucky. Kethvar continued. 1 human in a million, they said, an exception that proved how dangerous humans could be if we weren't careful, so they planned the next attack more carefully. He took a long drink before going on. They chose a forest moon called Verdania. It had only 800 human colonists spread across the entire world. Most of them were scientists studying the local plants and animals. The others were support staff who kept the research stations running. No military presence at all. Thexon shifted uncomfortably in his seat. What went wrong this time? Kethvar's compound eyes focused on something far away. We sent 2 full battle groups to Verdania, 1,000 of our best warriors with air support and heavy weapons. The plan was simple. Land at the main research station, capture or kill all the humans, and use the moon as a forward base for attacking human worlds deeper in their territory. The old soldier's forearms trembled slightly as he held his bottle. The landing went perfectly. We took the main station in 20 minutes, captured 300 humans without losing a single warrior. The commander was already sending victory reports back to the fleet. He paused and clicked his mandibles together in that disturbing laugh again. But there were 500 humans we didn't capture. Most of them were at smaller research stations, scattered through the forests. The commander wasn't worried. He sent out hunting parties to round them up. Simple search and destroy missions. Kethvar's voice became quieter, forcing everyone in the cantina to lean forward to hear him. That's when we met Lisa Carter. Who was she? One of Thexan's friends asked. Before the war, Lisa Carter was a park ranger on Earth, Kethvar said. Her job was to watch over large areas of wilderness and keep people safe from dangerous animals. She knew how to track things through dense forest. She understood animal behavior and survival techniques. But most importantly, she knew how to think like a predator. He drank again, and some of the liquid spilled from his mandibles. Lisa Carter was 31 years old. She had been on Verdania for 2 years, studying how Earth animals adapted to alien environments. When we attacked, she was alone at a research station 50 kilometers from the main base. The cantina grew even quieter. Aliens who had been talking at other tables stopped their conversations to listen. The first hunting party that went after her was 12 warriors with full combat gear, Kethvar continued. They had thermal sensors, motion detectors, and communication equipment that could track a target from orbit. They were experienced soldiers who had hunted rebels on a dozen different worlds. His compound eyes twitched as he remembered. Lisa Carter killed all 12 of them in 3 days. She used the forest itself as a weapon. Deadfall traps made from fallen trees, poisoned spikes carved from toxic plants, snares that hung warriors from the branches until they suffocated. Thexan's confident expression had completely disappeared. How could one human do that? She knew every tree, every stream, every cave. On that moon, Kethvar said. But worse than that, she learned about us. Within a week, she could predict our patrol patterns better than our own officers. She knew exactly how our thermal vision worked and how to hide from it. She understood our communication frequencies and started listening to our radio chatter. He opened another bottle with one of his 4 hands while the others drummed nervously on the table. After the first hunting party disappeared, the commander sent 24 warriors, then 48, then a full company of 100 soldiers with air support. Did they get her? Thexan asked, though his voice sounded like he already knew the answer. Kethvar's mandibles clicked again. Lisa Carter didn't just kill them. She started leaving messages, written in perfect Zephyrian script that she had somehow learned from intercepted communications. The messages were always the same: detailed analyses of our tactics, suggestions for how we could improve our strategies, and personal information about individual warriors that she couldn't possibly have known. The old soldier's voice became barely a whisper. She knew that Sergeant Clethmore was afraid of water because of a childhood accident. She knew that Lieutenant Vextal had lost his clutch brother in a previous campaign and blamed himself for. She knew things about us that we had never told anyone. One of the other aliens in the cantina dropped his drink. The sound of breaking glass made everyone jump, but no one looked away from Kethvar. The psychological warfare was worse than the physical attacks, he continued. Warriors who had fought in dozens of battles started having panic attacks when they entered the forest. They saw Lisa Carter in every shadow, heard her voice in every wind sound. Some of them started shooting at trees and rocks, convinced she was hiding behind them. Kethvar drank deeply before continuing. The final encounter happened at a forward command post that we had set up in a clearing near the center of the forest. 50 warriors with heavy weapons and force field generators. It should have been completely secure. He stared at his bottle for a long moment before going on. Lisa Carter walked into that command post in the middle of the day. She wasn't hiding or sneaking. She just walked up to the main entrance like she was visiting friends. How? Thexan asked. She was wearing the armor of a dead Zephyrian warrior, Kethvar said. But that wasn't the scary part. The scary part was that she moved like one of us. She had studied our body language, our walking patterns, our hand gestures. From a distance, she looked exactly like a Zephyrian soldier returning from patrol. Cantina was so quiet that everyone could hear their own breathing. She walked past 6 different guard posts. Kethvar continued, nodded to sentries who nodded back, even had brief conversations in perfect Zephyrian with warriors who thought she was someone they recognized. She made it all the way to the command center before anyone realized what was happening. His compound eyes twitched faster now. When the alarm finally went off, she was standing in front of the main communication console. She had already downloaded every piece of tactical information we had. Troop movements, supply schedules, weapons inventories, even personal files on individual soldiers. Did she try to escape? One of Thexan's friends asked. Kethvar laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. She didn't try to escape. She surrendered, put down her weapons and raised her hands like she wanted to be captured. The old soldier finished his bottle and immediately reached for another one. The base commander was furious. He wanted to interrogate her personally, find out how she had learned so much about us, discover if there were other humans like her. He paused and looked around the cantina at all the faces watching him. But when they brought Lisa Carter to the command bunker, she wasn't there to be interrogated. She was there to deliver a message. What message? Thexan asked, though he sounded like he didn't want to know. Kethvar's mandibles clicked one more time. She told the commander that she had been studying us for 2 months, learning our language, our customs, our fears, and our weaknesses. She said that every piece of information she had gathered was already on its way to other human colonies. But most importantly, she said that there were thousands of humans just like her, rangers, hunters, trackers, and survival experts who were already preparing to fight us. The cantina remained completely silent for several minutes. Finally, Thexan spoke in a small voice. What happened to her? The commander executed her personally, Kethvar said. Shot her with his own weapon while she was still in restraints. But before she died, Lisa Carter smiled at him and said something that none of us ever forgot. He drank again, and his forearms shook even more than before. She said that killing her wouldn't matter, because humans don't fight wars the same way other species do. When we kill one of their warriors, 10 more appear who have learned from that warrior's mistakes. Every human who dies makes the rest of them smarter and more dangerous. Kethvar set down his bottle and looked directly at Thexan. That's when we realized that humans aren't just tough or brave or clever. They're something much worse than that. They're adaptive. They learn from everything that happens to them, and they never make the same mistake twice. The bottle in Kethvar's hand was almost empty now. His compound eyes had trouble focusing on the 3 Centaurians sitting across from him. The cantina felt colder than before, and several other aliens had moved closer to hear his story. Even the bartender had come out from behind the counter to listen. After Verdania, the High Command changed their strategy, Kethvar said slowly. No more small attacks on isolated colonies. They decided to strike at Earth itself, show the humans that their homeworld wasn't safe. Break their will to fight by attacking what they cared about most. Thexan had stopped trying to look tough. His hand shook as he held his own drink. Did you invade Earth? We tried, Kethvar said. The first target was New Chicago. It had 3 million human civilians and was one of their major industrial centers. The plan was to capture the city, use the civilians as hostages, and force the human government to surrender. The old soldier's mandibles clicked together as he remembered. I was part of the ground assault force, 5,000 warriors with the best equipment the Empire could provide. We had air support, heavy artillery, and shield generators that could stop any weapon the humans had. The invasion should have been over in 2 days. He paused to drink the last of his bottle before continuing. New Chicago had maybe 500 human soldiers defending it. Most of them were local security forces with light weapons and no real military training. But there were 2 brothers there named Alex and Danny Cooper. They were both in their 20s, worked construction jobs during peacetime, and had joined the local militia just 6 months before the war started. Kethvar reached for another bottle with one of his forearms. At first, Alex and Danny Cooper fought like normal soldiers. They helped evacuate civilians, set up defensive positions, and tried to slow down our advance. They were brave but not particularly dangerous. Just 2 more humans doing their duty. The cantina remained completely silent except for the sound of Kethvar opening his new bottle. Everything changed on the 3rd day of the siege, he continued. A Zephyrian patrol captured a group of human civilians who were trying to escape the city. Among them was a 16-year-old girl named Emma Cooper. She was Alex and Danny's younger sister. His compound eyes twitched as he spoke. The patrol commander decided to make an example of her. He executed Emma in front of the other civilians and broadcast the video to the human defenders. He thought it would make them surrender faster. Kethvar took a long drink before going on. Instead, it turned Alex and Danny Cooper into something else entirely, something that still gives me nightmares. "What do you mean?" one of Thexon's friends asked in a whisper. "They stopped fighting like soldiers," Kethvar said. "They stopped trying to protect territory or achieve military objectives. They started hunting us like prey animals. And they were very good at it." The old soldier's forearms trembled as he held his bottle. The first sign that something had changed was when our patrol started disappearing. Not killed in combat, just gone. We would send out a squad of 8 warriors and they would never come back. No distress calls, no signs of battle, nothing. Hugh stared into his drink for a moment before continuing. "When we finally found the bodies, they were arranged in specific patterns. The Cooper brothers had studied our funeral customs and were leaving our dead in traditional Zephyrian mourning positions. But they also left messages written in our blood." "What kind of messages?" Thexon asked, though his voice shook. "Detailed information about our patrol schedules, our supply routes, our communication codes," Kethvar said. "Information that showed they had been watching us for weeks without us knowing. They knew which warriors were afraid of enclosed spaces. They knew who had families back on Zephyr Prime. They knew personal details about soldiers they had never met." The cantina grew even quieter. Several aliens at other tables had stopped drinking to listen. "The psychological warfare got worse every day," Kethvar continued. "Alex and Danny Cooper began targeting our wounded. They would attack a patrol, wound several warriors instead of killing them, and then track the rescue teams that came to help. They learned our medical protocols better than our own doctors." His mandibles clicked in that disturbing laugh. "They turned our own compassion into a weapon. Every time we tried to save wounded comrades, we walked into carefully planned ambushes. But they didn't just kill the rescue teams, they would wound them too, creating more targets for the next rescue attempt." Kethvar drank again, spilling some of the liquid down his chitinous chest. "The worst part was that they were always watching. Warriors would be on guard duty and see movement in the shadows. Just a glimpse of a human figure before it disappeared. But when they investigated, they would find small gifts left behind." "Gifts?" Thexon asked. "Personal items belonging to dead warriors," Kethvar said. "A weapon from someone who had been killed the week before. A piece of armor from a warrior who had died on the other side of the city. Family photos that had been taken from bodies we hadn't even found yet." The old soldier's compound eyes lost focus as he remembered. The message was clear. Alex and Danny Cooper could go anywhere, take anything, and we couldn't stop them. They had turned the entire city into their hunting ground, and we were the prey. He opened another bottle with shaking hands. "The breaking point came when they infiltrated our field hospital, not to attack it, but to deliver a message directly to our commanding officer." "How did they get into a military hospital?" one of Thexon's friends asked. Kethvar's voice became barely a whisper. "They walked in through the front entrance wearing stolen Zephyrian uniforms. But that wasn't the impressive part. The impressive part was that they had modified the uniforms to fit human bodies perfectly. They had studied our anatomy so carefully that they could disguise themselves as wounded Zephyrian soldiers." The cantina was so quiet that everyone could hear the station's life support systems in the walls. "They spent 3 hours in that hospital," Kethvar continued. "Talked to doctors, nurses, and patients. Gathered intelligence about our medical supplies, our casualty reports, and our evacuation procedures. Some warriors even asked them for help with minor injuries." His mandibles clicked again. When they finally revealed themselves, they were standing in the commander's private office. They had walked past 50 armed guards, through multiple security checkpoints, and into the most protected area of our base. "What did they want?" Thexon asked. "They left behind a complete intelligence report about our entire operation," Kethvar said. "Troop strengths, weapon inventories, supply schedules, communication frequencies. Everything. But they also left something else." The old soldier paused to drink before continuing. A simple note written in perfect Zephyrian script. It said, "We see you. We know you. We're coming." He stared at his bottle for a long moment. But the truly terrifying part was the signature at the bottom. It wasn't signed by Alex and Danny Cooper. It was signed by Emma Cooper, their dead sister. They were hunting us in her memory, and they wanted us to know it. Kethvar's forearms shook as he held his drink. After that, our warriors started breaking. Soldiers who had fought in dozens of campaigns began refusing to go on patrol. They would rather face court-martial than walk through New Chicago's streets. Did the Cooper brothers ever get caught? Thexan asked. The old soldier looked directly at him with his compound eyes. The siege of New Chicago lasted for 6 weeks. In that time, Alex and Danny Cooper killed or wounded over 400 Zephyrian warriors. They turned a simple occupation mission into a nightmare that broke the will of an entire army. He finished his bottle and reached for another one. When we finally withdrew from Earth, they were still out there, still hunting, still leaving messages for us to find. The last report from New Chicago said they had started recruiting other humans, teaching them the hunting techniques they had developed. Kethvar clicked his mandibles one more time. That's when the High Command realized that humans don't just fight to win. When you hurt them badly enough, they fight to make you pay. And they never forget, and they never forgive, and they never stop coming. Kethvar had lost count of how many bottles he had opened. His forearms moved slowly now, and his compound eyes struggled to focus on the Centaurians across from him. The cantina had filled with more aliens as word spread about the war stories. Everyone wanted to hear what the humans had really been like during the fighting. After New Chicago, the Empire decided to end the war quickly, Kethvar said. His voice was getting slurred, but his memories remained sharp. The High Command gathered the largest fleet in Zephyrian history, 300 warships with enough firepower to destroy entire worlds. The target was Mars, humanity's second most important planet. Thexan had given up trying to look brave hours ago. Now he just sat and listened with wide eyes. What happened? At Mars? The plan was perfect, Kethvar continued. We would destroy the human fleet in one massive battle, then bombard Mars until they surrendered. The humans only had maybe 60 ships defending the planet. Most of them were converted civilian vessels with improvised weapons. We outnumbered them 5-1. The old soldier opened another bottle with shaking hands. I was serving aboard the flagship Eternal Talon. From the bridge I could see the entire human fleet spread out in front of us. They looked pathetic compared to our war machines. Small ships held together with metal patches and hope. He paused to drink before continuing. The human fleet was commanded by someone called Dr. Rachel Stone. Before the war, she had been an astrophysicist studying how planets moved around stars. She knew about gravity and orbital mechanics and the mathematics that controlled how objects moved through space. Kethvar's mandibles clicked as he remembered. Our fleet commander laughed when he heard that the humans had put a scientist in charge of their military. He said it proved how desperate they were. How could someone who studied rocks floating in space understand real warfare? The cantina was completely silent now. Even aliens at distant tables had stopped talking to listen. The battle started exactly as we planned, Kethvar said. Our heavy cruisers moved forward in perfect formation. Our fighters launched in coordinated squadrons. Our weapon systems locked onto human targets and prepared to fire. Everything was proceeding according to standard Zephyrian naval doctrine. His compound eyes twitched as he spoke. Dr. Rachel Stone did something that no military commander had ever done before. She didn't try to fight our ships directly. Instead, she started fighting the mathematics of space itself. What does that mean? One of Thexan's friends asked. Kethvar took another drink before answering. Space is not empty. There are gravitational fields, magnetic currents, debris fields, and radiation streams. Most fleet commanders ignore these things because they seem unimportant. But Dr. Stone understood that everything in space affects everything else. The old soldier's voice became quieter, forcing everyone to lean forward. She began moving her ships in patterns that made no sense. They didn't form battle lines or defensive formations. Instead, they flew in complex spirals and curves that looked completely random. He stared into his bottle for a moment. Our fleet commander ordered a standard attack. All ships would advance together, concentrate firepower on the largest human vessels, and destroy them one by one. It was a proven tactic that had worked in dozens of previous battles. Kethvar's mandibles clicked again, but when we fired our first volley, something impossible happened. The energy beams from our weapons didn't travel in straight lines like they were supposed to. They curved and bent as they passed through the gravitational fields that Dr. Stone had somehow created by positioning her ships in specific locations. The cantina remained completely silent except for the distant hum of station systems. Half of our shots missed their targets completely, Kethvar continued. The other half hit our own ships because the beams had been deflected by gravitational interference. Within 10 minutes, we had caused more damage to ourselves than the humans had. His forearms trembled as he held his drink. Dr. Stone wasn't just commanding a fleet. She was conducting an orchestra of physics. Every ship movement created ripple effects that influenced how energy and matter moved through the local space around Mars. How could she calculate all of that? Thexan asked. She didn't calculate it, Kethvar said. She felt it, like a musician who doesn't need to read notes because they understand music itself. Dr. Stone had spent so many years studying how celestial objects moved that she could predict the behavior of entire star systems. The old soldier opened another bottle and continued. The real nightmare began when she started using our own formation against us. Our ships were arranged for maximum firepower and mutual support. Every vessel had specific positions relative to the others. It was a formation that had been tested in war games for decades. His compound eyes lost focus as he remembered. Dr. Stone somehow calculated the exact stress points in our formation. She identified which ships were critical for maintaining our battle line, and which ones could be removed to cause maximum disruption. Kethvar drank deeply before going on. She didn't attack our strongest ships. Instead, she targeted 3 small escort vessels that seemed unimportant, but when those ships were destroyed, the gravitational fields they had been creating suddenly disappeared. What happened then? One of Thexan's friends whispered. Chaos, Kethvar said simply. Without those escort ships maintaining specific positions, our heavy cruisers began drifting into each other's gravitational fields. The careful spacing that kept our formation stable started to collapse. The old soldier's voice became barely audible. Dr. Stone had turned physics into a weapon. She wasn't fighting our ships directly. She was fighting the fundamental forces that held our fleet together. He paused to drink again. The worst part was watching it happen. From the bridge of the Eternal Talon, I could see our formation slowly falling apart like a puzzle being taken apart piece by piece. Ships that had maintained perfect positions for hours suddenly found themselves on collision courses with their own allies. Kethvar's mandibles clicked in that disturbing laugh. Our fleet commander kept trying to restore order. He sent new movement commands, repositioned squadrons, and attempted to reform the battle line. But every change he made just gave Dr. Stone more opportunities to create new chaos. The cantina was so quiet that everyone could hear their own breathing. The final blow came when she somehow calculated the resonance frequency of our flagship's hull. Kethvar continued. She positioned 6 of her smallest ships to create overlapping gravitational pulses that vibrated the Eternal Talon like a bell being struck. His compound eyes twitched faster now. The ship didn't explode. It just shook itself apart. Bulkheads cracked, systems failed, and the entire command structure collapsed. The most powerful warship in the Zephyrian fleet was defeated by mathematics. Did any of your ships survive? Thexan asked. Kethvar finished his bottle and reached for another one. About half the fleet made it back to Zephyrian space, but we weren't really defeated by weapons or superior technology. We were defeated by someone who understood the universe better than we did. The old soldier looked around the cantina at all the faces watching him. Dr. Rachel Stone fought that entire battle without firing a single shot at our flagship. She never targeted our command ship directly. She just created the conditions that made our own structure destroy itself. His mandibles clicked one more time. After the Battle of Mars, the High Command realized that humans didn't just learn quickly or adapt to new situations. They could see patterns and connections that other species couldn't even imagine. They could turn abstract concepts like mathematics and physics into weapons more powerful than any gun or bomb. Kethvar drank deeply before continuing. That's when we understood that fighting humans wasn't like fighting any other species. When you fight most enemies, You're competing with their strength, their technology, or their courage. But when you fight humans, you're competing with their ability to understand reality itself. The cantina had become completely packed while Kethavar told his stories. Aliens from every corner of the station had come to listen. They sat at tables, stood along the walls, and crowded near the bar. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of different species breathing together in the same small space. But no one left. Everyone wanted to hear how the war between the humans and Zephyrians had really ended. Kethavar opened what might have been his 10th bottle of the night. His compound eyes could barely focus anymore, but his voice remained clear. The alcohol seemed to sharpen his memories rather than dull them. After the disaster at Mars, the High Command was desperate, he said. Half our fleet was gone. Our best commanders were dead or broken. The humans were getting stronger while we were getting weaker. Thexan had not spoken for over an hour. He sat with his mouth hanging open, staring at the old Zephyrian soldier with something that looked like terror. His two friends had moved their chairs closer to the table, afraid to miss a single word. The Empire decided to make one final attack. Kethavar continued. Something so overwhelming that the humans would have to surrender. The target was Earth's moon. If we could capture it, we would control the high ground above their homeworld. We could bombard Earth itself until they gave up. The old soldier's mandibles clicked together as he remembered. The plan was to send 5,000 elite warriors to take Luna Base. It was the humans' most important military facility off Earth. If we controlled it, we could threaten their entire planet. He paused to drink before going on. Luna Base was defended by 30 humans under the command of Captain Roy Henderson. 30 soldiers against 5,000 of our best warriors. The attack should have been over in 1 hour. Kethavar's forearms shook as he held his bottle. Captain Henderson had been a mining engineer before the war. He understood how to dig tunnels, move rock, and shape the landscape. When he joined the military, they put him in charge of defensive fortifications. The cantina was so quiet that the sound of aliens breathing seemed loud. Even the bartender had stopped moving and stood frozen behind the counter. I was part of the invasion force, Kethavar said. We landed on the lunar surface in perfect formation. Our ship set down exactly where the tactical computers had calculated. Our warriors deployed according to standard assault doctrine. Everything proceeded exactly as planned. His compound eyes twitched as he spoke. Captain Henderson let us land without firing a shot. Luna Base didn't even try to defend itself. The landing zones were completely undefended. Our commanders thought the humans had given up without a fight. Had they? One of Thexan's friends whispered. Kethavar's mandibles clicked in that dark laugh. Captain Henderson had spent 6 months turning the moon itself into a weapon. He didn't try to stop us from landing. Instead, he made sure we landed exactly where he wanted us. The old soldier took another drink before continuing. The first sign that something was wrong came when our heavy equipment started sinking into the lunar surface. The ground beneath our landing craft began to collapse. What looked like solid rock was actually a thin crust covering massive, empty spaces. His voice became quieter, forcing everyone to lean forward. Captain Henderson had used mining charges and construction equipment to hollow out huge sections of the moon beneath our landing zones. When our ship set down, their weight caused controlled cave-ins that trapped most of our vehicles underground. Kethavar stared into his bottle for a moment. But that was just the beginning. As our warriors advanced toward Luna Base, they found that every crater, every ridge, and every boulder had been carefully positioned to channel us into specific routes. The entire lunar landscape had been reshaped into a maze that led exactly where Captain Henderson wanted us to go. The cantina remained completely silent except for the distant hum of the station's life support systems. The killing zones were perfect, Kethavar continued. Narrow valleys with no cover where crossfire could hit us from multiple directions, open areas where snipers could pick off individual warriors from kilometers away, steep slopes that tired our soldiers and made them easy targets. His compound eyes lost focus as he remembered. But the worst part wasn't the tactical brilliance. It was the psychological warfare. Captain Henderson started broadcasting on open communication channels, not threats or demands for surrender. Something much worse. What? Thexan asked, though his voice shook. He started talking to us individually, Kethvar said. He knew the names of warriors he had never met. He described their fighting styles, their personal fears, their families back on Zephyr Prime. He spoke directly to soldiers, who were thousands of kilometers away from each other. The old soldier's forearms trembled as he held his drink. He told Corporal Vethka that her clutch sister was worried about her, and had sent a message through Zephyrian military communications 3 days earlier. He told Sergeant Klexmore that his fear of enclosed spaces came from being trapped in a cave as a child on the mining world of Kepler 9. Kethvar's voice became barely a whisper. He described my own childhood on Zephyr Prime, knew about my clutch siblings, my first hunt, the scar on my feeding mandible from a training accident. He spoke to me like he had known me my entire life. The cantina was so quiet that everyone could hear the station's engines humming in the walls. How could he know those things? Thexan asked. We never found out, Kethvar said. Captain Henderson somehow had access to detailed personal files on thousands of Zephyrian warriors. Not just military records, but childhood memories, family, histories, private fears that we had never told anyone. The old soldier opened another bottle with shaking hands. The psychological effect was devastating. Warriors who had fought in dozens of battles started to panic. They felt like Captain Henderson could see into their minds, predict their actions, and know their thoughts before they thought them. He drank deeply before continuing. The final assault on Luna Base itself was a disaster. Captain Henderson had turned the facility into a fortress that seemed to anticipate our every move. Every door we opened led to a trap. Every corridor we entered became a killing zone. Every room we captured was exactly where he wanted us to be. Kethvar's mandibles clicked again. But the truly terrifying moment came when our assault team finally reached the command center. Captain Henderson was sitting alone at a communication console, calmly talking to someone on Earth. He looked up at us like he had been expecting us to arrive at that exact moment. The old soldier's compound eyes twitched faster now. He surrendered, without resistance, put down his weapon and raised his hands. But before our squad leader could arrest him, Captain Henderson said something that none of us ever forgot. What did he say? One of Thexan's friends whispered. Kethvar finished his bottle and stared at the empty container. He said that the entire battle had been a test. He had been studying how Zephyrians think, how we fight, how we react under pressure. Every tactical decision we made, every formation we used, every communication we sent had been recorded and analyzed. The cantina remained completely silent for several minutes. Finally, Thexan spoke in a voice that was barely audible. What happened then? Captain Henderson told us that all the information he had gathered was already being transmitted to human military commands throughout the galaxy, Kethvar said. Complete tactical analyses, psychological profiles, and strategic weaknesses for the entire Zephyrian military. Everything we thought was secret was now known to our enemies. The old soldier looked around the cantina at all the faces watching him. 3 days later, the High Command sued for peace. Not because we couldn't win the war, but because we realized that fighting humans was like fighting an enemy that could see the future. Kethvar's mandibles clicked one final time. The peace treaty was signed by representatives from both species, but I still remember what the human negotiator said during the ceremony. She thanked us for teaching humanity so much about interstellar warfare. She said that fighting the Zephyrian Empire had helped humans understand exactly how to defeat any alien species they might encounter in the future. He opened one last bottle and held it up in a mock toast. We called humans monsters during the war, but the real horror was realizing they weren't monsters at all. They were just human, and being human means being capable of anything. The cantina slowly began to empty as aliens drifted away in stunned silence. Thexan and his friends sat frozen at their table, no longer looking like proud young warriors. They looked like children who had just learned that the universe was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Kethvar finished his drink and muttered to himself, "The war may be over, but I still dream about those calculating eyes. And I wake up grateful that humans consider us allies now."